What's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got an absolutely insane Naoe build to show you guys. This build doesn't rely on afflictions or any other damage over time effects to finish the job. Instead we're turning Naoe into a straight up powerhouse that hits like a truck through raw critical chance, critical damage and armor piercing. With this setup you don't need to sneak around and carefully pick off enemies one by one. You can literally run straight into castles, enemy camps and strongholds, pick fights with entire groups of soldiers, Samurai Daisho and even the much stronger corrupted Samurai Daisho and come out on top. Ever since the final update for Assassin's Creed Shadows dropped, I've been jumping back into the game and honestly having a blast. Not only did Ubisoft add a lot of new endgame content, but I've also been experimenting with new build ideas. And the best part, since this was the final major update, we don't have to worry about future balancing changes breaking our builds. Everything you're seeing today here is here to stay. So if you're looking for a build that transforms Naoe into an overpowered frontline warrior instead of a stealth assassin, you're going to love this one. Before jumping in, a like would be really appreciated, and for more Assassin's Creed Shadows content, make sure to check out the channel. So now, let's jump right into it. To make this build work, you're going to need a couple of specific items and engravings. Let's start with the weapons. So for our primary weapon, we're using the Katana. The reason is simple, it offers quick attacks, consistent damage output and excellent opportunities to trigger critical hits. The specific weapon I'm using is the Fortified Katana of Bravery. The reason we're using this weapon is because of its unique perk. It provides us with a plus 100% armor piercing on critical hits. And since we're stacking critical chance throughout the entire build, this effect is constantly triggering. Apart from that, I also added the plus 15% critical chance with consecutive enemy kills. Since this build is designed around fighting groups of enemies and rapidly chaining kills together, this engraving becomes incredibly powerful and helps push our critical chance even higher during combat. For our secondary weapon, we're using the Bo Staff. The Bo Staff is one of my favorite weapons in the game because of its versatility. It offers incredible reach, strong crowd control and multiple attack patterns that allow you to adapt to almost any combat situation. The specific weapon I'm using is the Graceful Bow of Destruction, and mine rolled with a plus 48% of armor piercing when hitting vulnerable enemies. And on top of that I added another, a plus 20% armor piercing engraving. This combination allows us to completely shred through enemy defenses, making sure our critical hits are dealing maximum damage. Also, one thing to keep in mind, several pieces in this build are purple gear pieces. That means the stats and engravings on them are randomized, so don't worry if your gear isn't exactly identical to mine. You may need to do some farming to get similar rolls, but as long as you focus on critical chance, critical damage, vulnerable damage and armor piercing, you'll be able to recreate the core of this build. For the headpiece I'm using the Bo Disciple headband. The main reason is its engraving. A guaranteed critical hit after switching targets. And this is incredibly strong when fighting groups because every time you switch enemies, you're essentially getting a free critical strike. And to complement that effect, I've also added the engraving that adds a plus 10% critical chance when hitting vulnerable enemies. This helps maintain a very high critical hit rate even when we're focusing down a single target. The Bo Disciple headband is a reward for completing the Go with the Bow quest, and this quest is from the base game, so you don't have to buy any DLC or Helix items. For the chest piece I'm using the Habu Snake ropes. Mine rolled with an increased vulnerable damage and also came with a plus 50% damage on next hit after an armor break. This synergizes perfectly with all of the armor piercing effects we're stacking throughout the build, increasing the raw damage. To increase our critical consistency even further, I added a plus 4% critical chance with melee weapons. Every little bit helps, and this pushes our crit chance even higher. Now for the item that really takes this build to the next level, I'm using the Kitsune's Revenge Trinket. Again, this is a random drop with randomized stats. The roll I got is absolutely insane. Mine has a plus 72% armor piercing when hitting vulnerable enemies, and a plus 150 armor piercing on critical hit. You can get these high stats by enhancing it at the blacksmith. So when you combine these bonuses with the rest of the build, every critical strike feels devastating. This is really what allows the build to perform so well against elite enemies and bosses. When everything comes together, the result is exactly what you're seeing on screen right now. Naoe becomes an absolute monster. Critical hits are constantly triggering, armor is getting shredded, and enemies are becoming vulnerable almost immediately. And once that happens, their health bars simply disappear. Even larger enemies and corrupted samurai Daisho get tossed around like crash test dummies. Instead of relying on stealth mechanics or damage over time effects, you're overwhelming enemies through sheer offensive power. It's fast and it's aggressive. And honestly, it's one of the most fun Naoe builds I've played so far. Also, now take a quick look at my skill trees. For the katana tree, here's my current katana setup. The focus here is maximizing damage output and creating as many opportunities as possible to trigger critical hits. You'll want to prioritize anything that improves direct damage, critical damage and overall combat efficiency. For the bow staff, there is one ability that I highly recommend, and that is wind step. This ability is absolutely insane. It increases the reach of the weapon, improves your ability to move through groups of enemies and significantly boosts your offensive potential. Once wind step is active, you can absolutely tear through groups of enemies with ease. It's easily one of the strongest abilities available for this build. Finally, let's take a quick look at my knowledge tree investments. I honestly haven't gone too crazy here, but for this build your priorities should be pretty straightforward. Anything with critical chance, critical damage, raw damage, vulnerable damage and armor piercing. Anything that directly increases your damage output is going to help push this build even further. So with everything combined, we have a critical chance of 112.5% and also a critical damage of 234.2%. The end result is an insane and fun to play with build for Naoe that shreds through anything that crosses her path, constantly dealing critical damage and melting enemies left, right and center. I also got another bonus for you guys, because if you're not really a fan of playing with the bow staff, the Kusarigama is also another fun alternative, especially due to its insane crowd control potential and even further reach than the bow staff. The wide swings of its heavy attacks ensure that no enemy can escape its grasp, giving you more than enough opportunities to take down as much enemies as possible in one go. And that's it for my critical hit Naoe build in Assassin's Creed Shadows. If you've been looking for a build that allows you to ditch stealth and simply dominate enemies head on, this is definitely one worth trying. Let me know in the comments what you think of this build and if you found any gear combinations that make it even stronger. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe for more Assassin's Creed Shadows content and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future builds. Thank you guys for watching and I will see you in the next one.